Happy 2023, everybody. Welcome back to Balanced. I'm Steve,
And I'm Ben.
and this is our first episode of the new year. So I hope everyone rang in the new year um, in a good way. And for our first episode, we're going to have an interesting topic here, Ben. We're going to talk about discovering your purpose. And we're talking about a purpose in life. And, you know, I guess we're also going to be asking the question, is there actually such a thing as this?
This should be a good one. And I think it's a great topic for our the first episode of what will technically be season 2 for us, I guess, because we did 12 episodes and this is episode 13, but it's the beginning of a new year. So season 2, here we go.
All right. Very good. Very good. So, um, first thing to start this off, I would just ask you, does your life have purpose?
Such a big question. Does it have purpose? I'm going to answer that question as with naked honesty.
Okay.
And I think outside of, because I don't have kids, I'm not engaged in any, altruistic endeavor. I don't work for a nonprofit. I don't go on missionary trips to third world countries and help build homes for people. I mean, it's hard to say if my life is purposeful or if I'm just kind of, existing with this humanistic outlook and endeavoring to do the kinds of things that people, I want to have a sense of security. I want to create a life of stability. I want to um, be comfortable. I want to be a good person day to day, but I don't know if that alone.
Yeah. It sounds like you almost started a little bit talking about and I can't remember who did it, but the hierarchy of needs.
Maslow.
Yeah. Was that Maslow? Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, but I was thinking, I think, I don't want to say it if I'm going to be wrong here. So, as far as me, I feel like my life has had purposes at different times. I mean, you feel a lot of purpose when you're a parent, or even when you're preparing to be a parent, things like that. Like there's certain times in your life.
Sure.
I feel like when you're a very young person, you sort of feel like, and I don't know if this is even anyone would agree, but a purpose is to become a man, to grow up or something like that. So it sort of has changed, but in the way you sure did sort of front load a lot into when you were just trying to talk yourself through, there's a lot of assumptions in there that you were like, well, I don't feel like I'm with a nonprofit and I'm not going on missions and I'm not helping people. So it seems to me like you feel like having a purpose really um, would mean that you're somehow connecting, helping other people.
Well, yeah, certainly improving the world in some way beyond your own kind of immediate sphere.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, um, I guess a question that I would ask, because you just sort of went through that sort of, like you said, being nakedly honest. I would ask this: is life purpose simply like a perception? Like someone feels like, hey, like I have purpose in my life. Well, like I was just talking about, I'm a parent and I'm raising these two kids. And when I was a new parent, you have that feeling like this is my purpose for the next 18 years or whatever. But is that just me? That's just my perception of it. Am I just an organism that's surviving and living? Or do you think there's a purpose that exists like an
Like something they were born to do?
Yeah.
I don't think that our purpose is fated. I don't faded like as in not faded, like you can't see it. Faded as in the fate, your fate. Is it,
Yes,
is
yes,
it, is
yes.
it, is it pre-written? But I think that people are born with different gifts. There's different types of intelligence and people develop and evolve certain strengths. And some people, I think people who are self-actualized figure out how to use those strengths to make the world a better place for people.
Okay. Okay. And it's funny. I was looking at like we titled this episode, Discovering Your Purpose. Is there such a thing? Um, I think so. You could run into or discover or find out, hey, this is really something that I love to do, and it makes the world a better place. But that might just be something based upon my talents, my experience, that I run into and sort of bump and like, oh wow, I really like this, and this is helping people, and I feel completely engaged, and I get in the zone, when I'm involved in it, I'm just all in. So people could discover a purpose, but not something that was like assigned to them, right? Like when they were born or something, right?
I think about athletes, people who, play professional football players, people who are in, bands and become rock stars. Those people are driven by some like innate inner force. They to do something that they love to do. And those two examples specifically, you could argue, well, football players and rock stars don't make the world a better place, but they do entertain and inspire. And so I think like the definition of goodness or making the world a better place is also very broad.
Sure. No, yeah, I get it. Everyone's doesn't isn't having to cure cancer. Going to the dictionary, uh, because we've been talking about it, like we know what it is, and I said I want to define it. Purpose, dictionary.com, the reason for which something exists or is done, made, used, etc. I think that's assigning like that someone has something within them. If we're talking about a person, this is the reason for which something exists. But if you could say someone exists or is done, I think people can find the reason for which they exist. I know a few people I'm thinking of, and we used to work with one person, I'm not going to name names, but who, like, this person was a dog person. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah, it's like this person, this is their, like, this lives, eats, sleeps, breathes dogs, training dogs, caring for dogs. Whether or not, I don't know if there's breeding or all the, just the whole life, every piece of clothing purchased revolves around that purpose, and what they'll need for that. Every vehicle, every place they decide to live, it's all like all about it, right?
Yeah.
So this is, I would say that this person has, you could say, well, no one assigned this to her at birth, or in, the stork didn't have the note in as it's carrying the baby, right? It says, oh, by the way, this is a dog person, right? But at some point this person found, and a lot of different things led, whether, there's reasons through growing up and how the person was socialized and how the person who raised the person and what their experiences were. But still, this person is very, very happy doing that. And I'm sure we all know some people, it could be musicians or whatever, who, whether you have your ultra marathon or people who just love that, right? Anything. So I think maybe not assigned, but like the person that we're thinking about right now that I just brought up, that is the reason for which that person exists, to be involved in that world.
Yeah. And I think you get at the heart of the idea of purpose. And one of the most beautiful things about it is that we get to, as human beings, decide for ourselves and define what that purpose is. It could be, whatever you're passionate about. I would stipulate that I think true purpose makes the world better in some way. And again, there's a lot of things that fit into under that umbrella in a lot of different ways. But I would just, as a counterpoint, I would say someone that grows up and is like fascinated by true crime and becomes a serial killer, they may define that as their purpose, but I don't think that qualifies because it detracts from the world, doesn't add to it.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I would say also, thinking about the example with like the dog person, this person maybe not making the world a better place, but affecting in a positive manner some life, whether it's not, maybe it's not people in her case, but it's animals, right?
Totally,
Yeah,
totally.
but definitely for, for good, for making a positive impact. Although not on a, when you're talking about a couple of dogs, it's not on a grand scale, but it's still, there's so many people out there. If everyone's doing something to make positive impact, do you feel like the world would be a better place?
Yeah. And imagine from those dogs' perspectives. I mean, we are all beings are kind of the center of their own universe, right?
Yeah.
So while this person, okay, is she making the world a better place through her training of these dogs? I mean, she's doing some good, but as far as the dogs themselves are concerned, as far as the owners whose dogs she, trains and you can't really measure the improvement that she's making on their lives. So there's definitely there definitely is upside there, even though it's not on a, I think what you were saying is like a global scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So, what about the science, right? So I'm at University of California, San Diego, Earth Guide, edu. I look up, purpose. The apparent goal of every organism is to fill the available world with its offspring. That's what some, biologists would say. Your purpose is to have offspring
Mm-hmm.
and just to keep going because you're just a little cog. And we talked about this a little bit in the episode, the podcast episode we had on, I think we called it parenting. So could this be it?
I either read this, I referenced it, or this came up organically while we were discussing this before. There was something along the lines of, if the success of a species is measured simply by their numbers, simply by their effectiveness at procreation, then ants, chickens, cockroaches, these creatures would be the top of the rock charts.
So yeah, exactly. And it clearly doesn't seem, especially in the case, if you think of chickens and how they're bred and raised in little tiny cages and can hardly move around. And, like even this, people say now there's free range, all this thing, and I know this is a sideline, but I'm just going to go there for a second. I read some details about what free range means. And it means like there has to be like in a huge warehouse full of chickens, there's got to be like a 3-foot hole in a wall where it's possible that some chickens get the chance to get out there in a little like 8 by 8 foot pen at least once a year.
Hmm.
Like, so in other words, they're not living out in a field all
Right.
happy and smiling.
Right.
Even though I don't think chickens can smile, right? But anyways, back to, you're right. I think so. The scientists might say, hey, that's your purpose. It's all just about biology, evolution, and we're organisms. And I think both of us agree that there's a little bit more to it than that from what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I moved on and said, what about religion? There's a lot of talk about purpose in religion. So I went to a site called pathos.com, and just let me read this off to you and I'll get your take on it.
Okay.
The purpose of life is to love and serve God in order to bring about God's glorious plan for creation. God's design or purpose for creation reflects God's intention that all creatures enjoy perfect love and justice. God works in human history to fulfill that purpose. What about that?
Well, those statements are just on their face, I think, both completely ridiculous. I mean, how can the critical mind even begin to entertain these notions given the world that we live in? I mean, the idea, just to zero in on a part of this, the only goodness, the only justice comes from people. I mean, those are human constructs that we try to affect. We create systems, and I mean, the world is just total chaos.
Yeah, and to say that, I had this thought when you were just saying that, it's like, okay, God's design, God's intention that all creatures enjoy perfect love and justice. All creatures, perfect love and justice. We just talked about the chickens. So I'm saying, if this is the case, he's not doing too well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much love the gazelle feels when it's in the lion's mouth.
Yeah, I mean, what this makes me think about, and I knew I would find plenty of material about purpose of life in religion. I knew I would. So that's why I looked for it. I almost feel like this is an attempt by, and I'm going to make enemies here in the first month of the new year, but an attempt by people who like to control other people and who think they're smarter than other people saying, hey, we need to give these people purpose because they don't know what the hell they're doing.
Hmm.
And I'm going to make sure that the purpose that I give them includes that they give me a little bit of their salary every
Hmm. Hmm.
weekend as well. And people do it. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you don't need to come up with your own purpose. Like we were just talking about to try, make a positive impact, no matter how small in the world, and try to be a good person. No, just do what we say. We'll handle your purpose. And I don't like that. I don't think that, how many people are going around thinking, well, hey, I'm purpose. So I'll just go to church, do what they say.
Yeah. Also, I'll just add to that the idea that the purpose of life is to love and serve God in order to help bring about God's glorious plan for creation. Well, that there's a lot of supposition in there. You're making a lot of, what God's plan is exactly is open to interpretation and debate. And if you step back from this idea, the model of the universe that we live in and the human experience and the experience of all living things, that model works without the religious framework. You know, you don't need the Bible to tell you how to be moral and just. I think that we would have come up with ideas about ethics and justice on our own. And I think we have. I mean, I don't know that the moral framework that the Bible provides is all that moral.
And want to make it clear here too, any of the religious, documents that so it's not just we're picking on the Bible, but it's just, we live in the United States. That's the thing that we hear about most, but there's other documents in religious and probably those are telling you here's how to be good and here's what your purpose in life is. Or if you spend time serving, whatever this deity that you're good to go. And that you should almost, it seems like it's like, don't worry about doing much more. Just do this, do what we say,
Yeah.
and you'll be fine. And like maybe people could do so much more, So okay, I think the religion purpose. So I went looking more. How about I said I found a place, a website. It's berkeley.edu. I know some people say, hey, Steve, I thought you were like, lean a little bit right. That's what we say in balanced, and Ben's a little bit left. But hey, I'm looking around for things because, that seemed to make sense to me. And I said, what else is there out there for purpose? And the place greatergood.berkeley.edu. This is how they define it. Purpose is an abiding intention to achieve a long-term goal that is both personally meaningful and makes a positive mark on the world.
I love that definition.
They gave some examples, goals that can change the lives of other people. Things like launching an organization, researching a disease. You had brought, I think, that up a little bit, like, or teaching kids to read, which is not a huge thing, or maybe training people's dogs so they don't, it's more enjoyable to have them around the house. I mean, we talked about little things. So you like that?
Yeah. I mean, to me, that is a much more rational enclosure for the idea of purpose.
Yeah. So an abiding intention to achieve a long-term goal. I would think you'd say goal or goals that are both personally meaningful and makes a positive mark on the world. Because just going around doing something to help other people just for the sake of it, I think that could be nice, but people can do that without really caring. Someone would say, hey, every charity, I'll give them $10. But this is like the person actually, it's personally meaningful. Like I enjoy this. I use the word getting into the zone, when you're doing something that you can just get into and you're just
Yeah.
like, time is not an issue. You're there.
The flow
And
state.
yeah, the flow, just getting there and being in that. And wow, just it makes you feel so good and so positive and helps you as a person being there. And on top of it, it's icing on the cake, right? It's then you're making a positive mark on the world. I think it's a good definition because that positive mark might not always be directly helping a person, right? But it could be, hey, I invented something that was very useful and helped advance this or that, or
Sure.
yeah, I mean, there's just tons of ways you can fit that in. So you like that?
I like that a lot, actually. And nope, lost it. Sorry.
Clearly wasn't part of your purpose to have that thought today. So, so I stayed with this a little bit, said I want to read a little bit more about what they have to say. Again, still greatergood.berkeley.edu. It says our sense of purpose will change over the course of our lifetime. Um, think about things like grappling with your identity as a teen, and then settling into the responsibilities of adulthood. I sort of mentioned that earlier, growing up, becoming a man, and then making the shift to retirement. These are things. So your purpose might turn into, when you become a parent, you've got like these little children and you're like, hey, I want to make sure they become good, purposeful human beings. Like, so you switch that focus, and for this portion of my life, my purpose is to really try to do the best I can with these children.
Yep.
So for me, I thought about that, and I liked how, because if they said it couldn't change, because I was automatically thinking, yeah, that's good, but everyone doesn't have the same thing. So I read more in this greater good, and like I thought about, yeah, becoming a man. When I went away to the army and served the country, I had a focus and a purpose there, and it was sort of like, becoming a man, but it was also impacting, which was important for me, but it also impacted helping the country and service to the nation, um, and then there was marriage, parenthood, raising the family, right? I just talked about that. And then I think about career. And for me, career, I'm one of those types of people. I do not live to work, but I work to live.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, career was, that doesn't mean I don't care about my work. I'd like to do something that I enjoy, but I like to do something that I can get to a point where I can, you know, make enough money that I am comfortable. I can have the things I want to, take care of my family the way I want to. So, um, and then looking towards retirement, by the way, not that anyone's counting, Ben, but I'm under 6 years to retirement. So
Yeah, good for you, man.
yeah. Um, so yeah, what do you think about that? Can you see those changes when you start thinking about purpose? Are there times? Because sometimes if you're like, this is what I'm thinking about, like, look at that when it talks about a teen, like someone trying to grow up. It's like you say, well, that's just all about you. It's self-centered. How does that make a positive mark in the world? I think it makes a positive mark in the world by entering a well-rounded, you know, good adult who can make a positive impact on the world into that adult age group of society.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally get that. I think that my, personally, and I've talked about this a little bit in some other episodes, but my perspective on this is a little bit different, and it's shaped by a very, very difficult childhood
Mm-hmm.
and growing up without male role models around. And I think that when you're just trying to survive a situation, that also affects your kind of your perspective on your purpose. Because when you're a kid and you're in a dysfunctional environment, the purpose is you almost don't even you can't even consider that. It's just you're taking it one day at a time and like trying to cope. Um, and then and again, I'll just, for me personally, there was a lot of overcoming just bad circumstances that had to happen. And then my purpose was like, okay, set yourself up for success, because you can't, it's up to you. So like, now my purpose is like, get through school. And then my purpose was, all right, now I'm like kind of on my own here. So I need to figure out a way to create some stability and support myself. And my purpose then was like, all right, what am I going to do? I need to like work and figure out how to earn some money and figure out how to manage my life in a positive way. So I've done all those things. I think the next phase or next chapter for me, and this kind of goes back to how we started the episode. All right, I've now I'm good. I've gotten out of the negative situation. I got educated. I've created stability in my life. Now, what is my contribution going to be? That's towards the greater good. It's probably not going to be in advertising.
Okay. So no, what I'm hearing, and I think I was thinking this as you said this, sometimes your purpose, and based upon just that, being an organism is just to survive,
Yeah.
right? But and then it's funny, we brought up the hierarchy of needs. As 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 you step up from the base elements of the hierarchy of needs and you become more comfortable, then your purpose, it's almost like, can spread further out, away from yourself and simple survival, and towards the rest of the world, right? So like if you're struggling, I mean, your purpose might just be to pay the rent and put some food on the table. And then you're like, I'm struggling through school, that's my purpose, I can't really give back in a lot of ways. But then as you climb that ladder, and um, you go up on that hierarchy, then you're like, hey, I can be more outward looking now with my purpose.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, that's very well put. And the mental picture that I created while you were saying that was like an inverted 3D kind of I guess, an inverted pyramid
Yeah.
where the further up you go, the further out you go.
Yeah, and it's like how they usually show the hierarchy of needs. It's like a pyramid, right?
Yeah.
So put that pyramid that you've seen 100 times and then over top of it. That's what I was thinking too. I was like, it's almost like that pyramid of purpose. It gets it's pinpointed and then it spreads like the opposite way of the way they put the needs. So
Yeah. I like that.
um, yeah. So I mean, that's what I heard you from what you were saying, because it would be, when you're saying as a child and wanting to get out of a bad situation, I just cannot sit with it saying, oh, so a kid in that situation has no purpose. That's not true. The purpose then is just simple, like you said, day-to-day survival, make it to the next day, and then scratch out of that, and then keep going. And then one day you will be able to do that, make that positive mark on the world.
Yeah. And I think in a lot of ways, I'll just add that life will often dictate to you what your purpose is. You don't always get to choose, you know. You mentioned like raising your boys and being a good role model and father to them, and being very like invested in the family. And that's a set of circumstances that, you know, you guys were, when you found out that you were expecting, that I'm sure dramatically shifted your focus. And the same thing for me. I got married back in 2016, and then and ongoing, a big part of my purpose is to be the best partner, the best husband, you know, the most supportive. Um, Marriages are a lot of work, as we've talked about in other episodes, but that's a big part of my day to day as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So still more from the greater good.berkeley.edu. You can see as I started looking at this, I started like really getting into this. I want to see what else they have to say. So here's a couple things I want to get your thoughts. Like happiness, purpose is not a destination, but a journey and a practice. And we talked about that a little bit, how as you just talked about your journey a little bit,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Um, and they say it's accessible at any age, your purpose, if you're willing to explore what matters to you and what kind of person you want to be. And if you act to become that person, a lot of people can say what matters to them, and a lot of people can tell you what type of person they would want to be. But if they're not acting to try to move in that direction, I just think I saw a video of this guy. He's like one of these big mindfulness guys. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name's George Mumford. Interesting story where he had a lot of drug problems, and how he got to where he is now. He's giving seminars to big, corporations and in government. And one of the things that he said that I heard from him that stuck out with me is like, where is it that you want to be? And think of that as sort of like where in life, like giving your purpose back, like how are you going to make positive impact?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it that you want to be? He said, it's easy from there. Once you know that, he said, you just have to ask yourself, what kind of person gets there? And in your head, people know, like if I want to be a marathon runner, I need to work out every day, go running. I need to stretch. I need to eat well. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, this is easy. And he said, so where is it that you want to be? Once you figure that out, then you figure out what kind of person gets there, and then be that kind of person. But many
Yeah.
people don't do it. But the bottom line is, sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
just for that purpose at any age, like it's not a destination, it's the journey. We talked about that, but what matters to you and what kind of person do you want to be based upon what matters to you,
Yeah.
and get there. Right.
I think certainly the world would be a better place if more people engaged in that kind of introspection. I mean, maybe that's the problem when you see people who aren't self-actualizing, that they haven't stopped to ask these types of questions.
Yeah, I agree. And I think um, I'm going to go one last place. I promise you, from that Greater Good website.
A lot of good info here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And psychological research suggests, no, I didn't write down all the names of the research or anything, that if we continually revisit and renew our purpose over lifetime, like with that introspection, just like you're talking about, our lives will be more satisfying and meaningful. I mean, I think that's almost saying something obvious almost,
Yeah.
but like you already said, hey, my purpose has changed, and it's evolving, right, over time based upon the situation I've been in.
Yeah.
And I get it. And so you're continually renewing, and going back and revisiting, okay, what's my purpose now? What's next for me? That is like, if you continually do that, I think sort of the term you've used several times today already is you're sort of self-actualizing. And it says your lives will be more satisfying and meaningful. In other words, people will be happier and just be more overall healthy.
Yeah. Self-actualizing just meaning becoming the best possible version of yourself, or the most idealized version of yourself. And I'm glad that you mentioned happiness, because I think there is a dotted line between this idea of purpose and living a meaningful, satisfying life, and happiness. And we know from, since we're talking about, psychological research, they've done the studies. They know the things that make human beings happy and the things that make them depressed, less happy. And just a couple examples, like they know that altruism, doing good for other people, contributing to your community, raising your family, those are all good things that make people feel good and want to be better and increase your happiness. We know that things like social media make people less happy. Constantly comparing yourself to other people and consuming these very, like, as we talked about in that episode, when you consume these curated facades, it's a happiness diluter.
Yeah. And I can't, speaking about that social media, and that was a great episode that I really enjoyed, that discussion. But and I can't tell you where I heard this, and or I can't even tell you if we've talked about it before, but someone had said, and it stuck to me, was don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday,
Yeah.
last week, last month, last year. And if you're just like, hey, I see positive improvement, growth, learning, giving to the community, helping people, then I think you're moving in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
But not comparing. My car doesn't look as cool as his car looks on the Facebook post or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we're having this conversation at an interesting time for me personally, too. And I feel I should mention that I myself have been going through a rather reflective stage in my life where I'm kind of re-examining. I'm 42 now, so I'm kind of at that middle point. And you look back and see how far you've come, and you look ahead and you ask where you want to go. And I feel that I'm pretty aware of some changes that I want to make, and I'm working, to answer some tough questions about what the future is going to look like. But it is an ongoing thing.
yeah. And I know, when I turned 50, and see, you're saying halfway, you're not halfway, you've got 8 years till you're halfway, because
Well, that's assuming that you live to be 100.
yes, that absolutely, that's the goal. And I think if you say it enough times, you believe it, it'll happen, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you take steps to do it, right, not just saying, it would be nice, but take steps to do it. So keep the mind working, keep that really kicked off for me when I remember um, at that time, I started asking myself, said, okay, you're halfway through this life if you're lucky, right? If you get that 100 spot halfway through, do you want to be someone who, when you're on your deathbed saying, man, there's so many things that I always said I wanted to do and I didn't even start, right? um so people who want to, any achievement, any goal, things that it would be really cool if this could happen, or I would really want to visit this place, or there's, the bucket list things, the different things. But it was huge for me, and I really changed a lot of things. I mean, I read literally 10 times more than I did before that
Mm-hmm.
now, just to try to always learn and get better. I've tried different things in different positions at work, put myself really out of the comfort zone into, into major public speaking situations, into like just stuff that if you had given me a survey before I turned 50, I'd have said, yeah, not so much. I don't ever plan on thinking that's going to be good for me, right? Things
Yeah, yeah.
I just put myself in so many more and put myself out there so much more.
Hmm.
This doing this podcast with you is one of them. People know and people can listen, and if people are like, wow, that's like you're putting, we're talking and we're having these conversations, and we're saying a lot of things that a lot of people might not say in front of other people. So like you said, nakedly honest, right? And of course try not to get ourselves in trouble or anything, but the bottom line is to really try to learn and grow, and I think it's important. I think it's important, and you're not halfway till you're 50, bro.
Okay. All right. No, noted. I gotta hit the treadmill after this.
Yeah, there you go. I was on the treadmill this morning. So question, I have a question. Do you really have to change the lives of others in order for you to have true purpose in life? I mean, can it be individual?
I think a lot of times people think about a purpose as affecting other people, even if you're, you know, even if you're a reclusive oil painter, and you never interact with anyone. You're just in your
Yeah.
studio painting, affects people. If, when they see your work. I mean, I think,
What if no one ever sees it? What if you just keep them?
yeah, well, that is a very interesting question.
I mean, that would be purposefully meaningful when we go back to the Berkeley, the greater good
Yeah.
site. So that's half of it, right?
But then I think in that case, the finished paintings are just a byproduct uh, of the purpose, which is putting the paint on the canvas.
Yeah. I mean, so, I struggle with this, and I was thinking of an example like, just read David Goggins' second book. Are you aware of David Goggins, right?
We've talked about him. Yep,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he was a SEAL.
Yeah, yeah, and he's just the second book, incredible. I highly suggest it to anyone on who and listen to the audio version, because after each chapter, he is interviewed by like his co-writer, and they talk through it. Like, so sometimes you read a chapter and you're like, wow, I wonder about this or that, or and so they break it all down. Like, so give you more information than the book. But anyway, I was thinking about like, what if I was just like, I want to run 100-mile ultra marathon because I read about it in his book, and I'm gonna do it, and I just do it. Like, could that be purposeful, or is that just a personal growth thing? Like, I might be learning a lot about myself, or but I sort of thought, and have now that we've had this discussion, well, maybe that would inspire someone.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone said, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So
Interesting.
maybe that does affect some other little tiny positive mark in the world. So
These are
I
great
don't know.
questions. I mean, they really are great questions because it gets down to the very nature of how you define and think of a purpose. Think of your purpose. I mean, again, are you running the ultra marathon to inspire, or are you running the ultra marathon to push yourself and really see what you're capable of as a human being? And the inspiration that other people might derive is just a byproduct of your own kind of pursuit.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that's the deal. I think it. So it could be maybe because yeah, like you said, you're learning about yourself, what your limits are. You're self actualizing, right? If you're doing it something like that,
Yeah.
he's in his book he wrote about how he ran the Moab 240. It's a 240-mile race. Yeah, I think you have like 4 days to finish it. Like that's
Hmm.
he said he learned so much about himself on that, which you could only imagine you would, right? Um,
Sure.
but and he failed the first time and had to go back because he didn't make it the first time, things like that. So he learned through the process and through so and it's people want to hear that story because it's hey, this guy can do that. I mean, there's probably some things that I didn't think I could do, but I probably could do if I really tried.
Right. And
um,
there you go, because he had that experience. He went, he did the race, he failed, he went back, he completed it. He wrote about that experience in a book, which many people have read or listened to. And now you and I are discussing it, and the people listening to this show are experiencing it. And and that's how this stuff kind of spreads out.
yeah, so it is affecting, right? So and again, just to throw it out there, it's called Never Finished, but I would highly suggest, because it links directly to the first book where he talks about his childhood, that you have to don't just go by or listen to Never Finished without listening to Can't Hurt Me, which is his first book.
Hmm.
But anyway, so yeah, it can. I think it can be individual in that type of respect, but it probably, if something's truly a self-actualizing individual act, it probably will inadvertently, whether you like it or not, affect someone else.
Yeah.
Even if you try to hide it, probably it will somehow, right?
I think
Um,
that's just because of the nature of human interconnectivity, and like our propensity to look at other human beings and interact and hear their stories. And it gets back to, like, people are born with different gifts, and I've always felt that along with those gifts comes an innate desire to use them. Like
yeah,
that's what possesses somebody to say, like, I'm not going to go to college, I'm not going to have a job, I'm not going to try to build, I am going to find some people that can play music, create a band, and we're going to play shows. And even if it's in a backyard and we're singing to three people, this is what I love to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is all I want to do: party and play my music.
so I'm going to ask you then, what is your purpose in life currently?
Well, just as another point of comparison, my wife works, uh, she went to school and became an addictions counselor. And so right there, you have someone whose entire pursuit on a daily basis is helping people improve their lives by overcoming their addictions. And I am not blind to the contrast between what she does for a living and what I do for a living. It's like it's really caused me to ask some tough questions about exactly the stuff that you and I are talking about now. It's like, how am I going to contribute? Because I don't think that making commercials is going to cut it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a huge discussion. When anyone talks about their purpose in life currently, I would say this: for me, to maintain being a good husband to my wife while constantly striving to become a better Steve, better physically, better mentally, meaning knowledge wise and
Mm-hmm.
emotional stability, all those things, just better. Like, so trying to be the best version of myself that I can based upon the circumstances I find myself in. And an example of what I mean by that is I have decided there's 6 years till I receive a retirement. I'm gonna plug these. It's under six, but I'm gonna plug away. I'm gonna get that retirement. I have decided that. That's something that we've talked about. I know my wife retires in like 5 years, right? So just to say, okay, we're doing this. We're gonna push out those last few yards and get in the end zone that lets us retire. But until that time, trying to be a better Steve, in all ways.
Yeah.
So
I think that's great, man. I like how you put that. I would say that, there's many things that I admire about you personally. You mentioned being a voracious reader, trying to keep the mind sharp. You're always trying to learn. You're not afraid to put yourself out there. You're always pushing yourself physically and like making sure that you're staying in shape. And that's all going to pay off in big ways for you. I think like to be in a position where you can retire, but still be, a lot of people retire and they're too tired to do anything except play golf and, hang out.
yeah,
I think I think you've created a situation that's going to afford you kind of the best of both worlds where you have, the time and freedom to do whatever you want, but also the energy and the physical capability to still get out there and enjoy life.
yeah, I mean, and that's part of my thing. I'm serious, Ben, when I say I'm planning on hitting 100.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you want to put any money on that, but
Actually, it was this conversation that kind of made me step back as you and I were talking and ask that question of myself of like, well, why have I been assuming 80? Why not assume 100?
yeah. And part of what pushes me too, uh, there are some people in my life that, and again, I'm not mentioning any names, that are older or that I know or have run into or have experience with, and they are like not prepared to be 80. And I think about that, what I do, and this is gonna, some people are gonna think, oh man, Steve's a harsh guy, but I say, hey, someone is like, this person is older, they're having a lot of problems physically, they're having things break down, they're haven't taken good care of themselves, and that's where I go like, hey, listen, this was like something that you could have worked on when you were 40,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you were 50. But I know that person, and I look at that person, pictures of that person back then, and they no one was taking care of it. I mean, I know, we sometimes, some people probably don't, like the way sometimes we get sort of negative aspects of religion and we talk about that. But like, I'm talking about your body, your mind, or your temple. That's you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You had better keep sharp.
And you only
You
get
had
one.
bet. You only get one, right?
Well, what that makes me think of, and I think we've probably talked about this before too, but we are all the embodiment of our choices, right? We're all kind of living or sleeping in a bed of our own design, so to speak. And life requires, in aging especially, requires you to, I've heard it put this way, and I think about it like this myself: you have to parent yourself. I absolutely freaking hate going to the dentist. I hate it. Even the 6-month cleaning, I hate it. It's very personal. I don't like it. I don't like the scraping. I don't like anything about it. But you know what? I'm in the chair every 6 months
Yep.
because I also, I also want to be,
Yeah. When you're 70 and you want to take a bite out of an apple, you want to be able to do it.
I don't want to have to put my dentures in. Right.
No, yeah, you only get one. It disciplines the way, man. Discipline is the way. You have to be like you said, parenting yourself. Same thing as being disciplined. Like, get up in the morning, do what you have to do, and because it's like almost this. People like, isn't there a medicine for that, or isn't there an operation for that? No, some things there's not.
Yeah.
And what you expect, does someone expect to mistreat themselves for years upon years upon years? That's like never giving a car an oil change, right? And
Yeah.
then you're pissed off when it won't start that day, and then it's kaput.
You're like, I'll just have a new engine put in.
Yeah.
But like having the new engine put in it creates a whole other host of problems.
Yeah, it's just I think we have to be very intentional about it. And that's what I would say. If the question about what is your purpose in life, and it seems like you said you've been thinking about a lot of things, I have been thinking about a lot constantly since I turned 50, which was now 4 years ago, but I've gotten some things done since then. If the question for anyone out there listening, and of course we're talking to ourselves as well, if that question is really hard to answer for any of us, I think we should all spend some time, like you said, seriously reflecting on it to figure it out.
Yeah,
Because like you said, you only get one life.
yeah, and you have to live it with intentionality. I think that's like you can kind of wake up every day and just let the world happen to you, but I think the world would be better and we would all be better off personally if we were the types of people who woke up in the morning and happened to the world.
Yeah, that's well said, man. Well said. So, wow. When I think about final thoughts on this, and I think we both, after this discussion, we're probably going to go sit and and have some thoughts. And I would encourage people to also thing that I do, Ben, encourage you and anyone else to write some stuff down. It doesn't have to be anything that it's not like you're going to turn it in, it's going to be graded, but write
Right.
some thoughts down,
Yeah.
and revisit it and see how that changes what you're thinking and what your plans are. But just putting something down on paper, it makes it more tangible. So for me, a way forward, like you just said, living intentionally, striving towards a purpose, whatever it is. To me, it makes more sense than wandering aimlessly, like you just said, or relying on someone else, like we were talking about, or someone else let me give you your purpose.
Yeah.
Here it is, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. And well, it will. There are plenty of people who will just go ahead and tell you what to do. And if you want to take that, I just don't think that's the best route, though. Everyone should take some time to reflect on and try to find your purpose. What are you here for? What do you want to be here for? What is meaningful to you? Go be the person who's doing it. Make some impact. Come be 100 with me. Come down that road and say, hey, I'm not even halfway there. You're not even halfway, man.
Yeah, that was kind of an eye-opening takeaway from this conversation.
Thanks so much for listening to our first episode of season 2 in January of 2023. If you have any ideas for topics or things you'd like us to discuss, drop us a line at benstevebalancedpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, and I promise you will eventually get a response for sure.
Balanced is produced by myself and Steve. Our music is performed by Four Giants. You can check them out on Spotify, Bandcamp, or anywhere else you stream music. If you enjoyed this discussion and you'd like to hear more balanced conversations, hit subscribe or follow. Steve and I would really appreciate it. As always, this is Ben.
And this is Steve.
And we are balanced.